Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating framework for not just surviving, but actually thriving in uncertain times. I mean, let's face it, we live in an era where the future can feel incredibly opaque, and when things get unpredictable, we naturally crave clear, actionable guidance. Well, the framework we're unpacking today provides exactly that. It's a comprehensive, deeply structured approach for coming out on top when the economic or social climate gets tough. Our source material for today is a text called The Laws of Prosperity by Ryuho Okawa. Specifically, we're zeroing in on Chapter 4, which outlines a concrete strategy called Thoughts for Success. Now, what makes this source so compelling is that it completely bypasses all that vague, feel-good advice you usually hear. Instead, it lays out a rigorous, universal strategy that scales all the way from your personal, everyday habits right up to the macroeconomic management of an entire nation. We're going to stick strictly to what the text presents regarding this incredible micro to macro progression.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, philosophy for tough times. Second, the individual success process. Third, corporate management in recessions. Fourth, a 100-year national plan. And finally, interlocking all the gears. Section 1. Philosophy for tough times, the foundation.
Okay, so this first concept acts as the essential foundation for literally everything else we're about to explore. The author introduces a central motif right out of the gate. He wants us to think of society as a massive, complex machine powered by three interlocking gears. You've got the individual, the corporate, and the national. The absolutely crucial point here is that these three levels, they cannot operate independently. They require a shared, consistent mindset to actually function. Think of it kind of like the transmission in your car, right? If the individual gear loses its teeth, the engine might rev, but the vehicle isn't going anywhere. If individuals lose their drive, or if corporations stop innovating, the whole system just grinds to a halt. You simply cannot have a thriving nation without resilient corporations, and you certainly can't have resilient corporations without focused, driven individuals. Section 2. The individual success process. Starting small. Knowing that it all starts at the foundation, we're going to zoom all the way in to the micro level now. The source text breaks individual success down into 4 strict, actionable steps. And honestly, you really can't skip any of these. Step 1 is having a clear vision. You must hold a crystal clear image of your success in your mind. Why? Because if you don't know exactly where you're going, you aren't going to get there. Step 2 is fighting with new ideas. In tough times, you have to innovate continuously. Step 3 is severe prioritization. Look, we all have intensely limited time, energy, and resources. Managing them ruthlessly is a harsh but completely necessary reality if you want to move forward. And step 4 is persistence. But the text is super clear about this. It's not just about simple, blind willpower. It's about a sheer, results-driven tenacity. It's almost an obsessive drive to see your goals through to the very end.
This brings us to a brilliant quote that really captures the mindset required for that second step we just talked about. The text issues a very stark warning. Status quo is the same as regression. Wow. It's a really powerful concept. If you're just relying on yesterday's old ideas, hoping things will magically improve without changing your approach, you aren't just standing still. You are actively moving backward. In difficult economic or social eras, merely maintaining your current state is essentially failing. So, let me ask you directly. Do your daily habits actually match this need for clear vision and severe prioritization? It's really easy to nod along to these concepts, but actually implementing them, that's a whole different story. If you're feeling stuck right now, whether it's in your career or your personal projects, it is highly likely that one of those 4 strict steps is entirely missing from your routine. Taking a moment to actively audit your own life against this rigid framework is exactly what the author intends for the reader here. Section 3. Corporate management in recessions, the meso level. When a recession hits, we shift up the ladder to the organizational level to see how that individual persistence translates into strict crisis management. The text outlines a pretty cold, two-sided strategy for businesses. It's all about executing 2 entirely different, almost contradictory actions at the exact same time. On the left side, you have a ruthless defense. You have to aggressively cut unprofitable sectors without hesitation. You've got to strip away the dead weight so you don't sink. But on the right side, you have an aggressive offense. Simultaneously, you must invest heavily and confidently into the sectors that are actually generating profit and showing real promise. The text describes this as a state of extreme balance. You have to ruthlessly eliminate waste while thoroughly maximizing your strengths. It's an intense, high-stakes balancing act, and it requires incredible nerve from leadership.
The logic here is that you can't just turtle up and wait for the storm to pass. You have to actively prepare for future growth, even while you're shrinking the waste. That way, when the economy finally does turn around, your organization is already miles ahead of the competition, totally primed for immediate expansion.
Section 4. A 100-year national plan. The macro level. Zooming out one final time to the macro level, we take these core principles and apply them to national policy. At this level, the author makes a very specific structural argument. Long-term prosperity strictly requires abandoning short-term fixes and handouts. The source material actually offers a critique of modern democratic governance here. It points out that budget deficits often act as an inevitable trap within democracies. Why? Simply because political systems naturally tend to favor short-term comfort, like immediate financial stimulus, to appease voters rather than enacting difficult, structural, long-term solutions. It's a fascinating look at how the author believes the desire for immediate relief can actually compromise an entire nation's future if it's left unchecked.
So what are the solutions at this macro level? Well, it's surprising to think about considering how incredibly rare a true 100-year plan is in modern governance, but the text proposes a few massive structural shifts. First, forcing severe processing ability and strict private sector cost consciousness onto government bureaucracy. Essentially, they're saying we should treat the government budget with the exact same extreme balance and scrutiny that a struggling corporation would use during a recession. Cut the waste, maximize the efficiency. And secondly, a deep, unwavering investment in education and academia. Because ultimately, the text argues it's the people, the educated individuals capable of having clear visions and new ideas who are actually going to build the future value of the nation. It all connects right back to human capital.
Section 5. Interlocking all the gears. Synthesis. Synthesizing everything we've just uncovered from this text, notice how these distinct strategies perfectly align. At the individual level, the core strategy is persistence and severe prioritization. At the corporate level, it's that extreme balance of defense and offense. And at the national level, it's a 100-year perspective focused on educational investment and ruthless efficiency. Notice how all three tiers, while operating on totally different scales of society, share the exact same underlying DNA. They all demand abandoning short-term comfort to focus entirely on long-term value creation.
And that is the absolute core thesis of the laws of prosperity when facing uncertain times. It's only when individuals, corporations, and governments collectively abandon the lure of short-term comfort and truly lock their respective gears together with a shared, disciplined mindset that society can genuinely prepare for and thrive in a new era. The prosperity of the whole depends entirely on the discipline and vision of its individual parts. Which brings us to a final, provocative thought for you to take away today. What is your own 100-year plan? How are you going to take this multi-layered framework, these vital principles of vision, ruthless prioritization, extreme balance, and long-term thinking, and apply them to your own life starting tomorrow? The key to unlocking the future is quite literally in your mindset. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. I really hope this deep dive helps you build a clear path forward. Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll catch you next time.